Moving in Sefer Mishlei, Perek Chaf chapter 25, towards the end. This chapter begins with a very interesting pasuk, as it is describing where these parakim, or where these meshalim, these pasukim are taken from. Apparently, they were written at different times. They were not revealed at the same time. And that is why the first pasuk begins, Gam ele Mishlei Shlomo asher etiku anshe Hiskiyahu melech Yehuda. These two are the Proverbs of Shlomo, which the men of Hiskiyahu, during the time, the reign of Hiskiyahu, the king of Yehuda, they maintained, or they put together, they copied, they wrote it down. According to the tradition, Shevna HaSofer took these portions that were hidden away. That perhaps one of the reasons that they were hidden away was that it was not meant for them to be revealed. Maybe certain parts of it were not meant to be seen by everybody. Nevertheless, they combined it and they all put it in the same sefer because they all belong to Shlomo Melech. He actually had said these words, but they were put together later. And he says as follows in Pasuk Bet, Kevod Elohim aster davar uchvod melachim hakor davar. The honor of Hashem is to conceal certain matters, whereas the honor of kings is to search out and to investigate certain matters. This is the first half of the pasuk is a very well-known idea that there are certain things that it is more proper to just hide and not disclose, not to further investigate them. That is the kavod of Hashem, and that relates to, of course, the mysteries, the many things that the human mind is not capable of understanding. There are quite a few. One of them is called Maaseh Bereshit, Maaseh Merkava, which is the very, very deep Kabbalah. The very few people actually enter, and even those who enter are warned before they enter that there are certain things you should never ask and never try to understand, because you never will, and if you try you will go crazy. And people in the past have gone crazy, literally, out of their mind, by trying to figure out certain things that it is beyond human comprehension. It is not possible for us to know and to understand everything there is. So we are told beforehand there are certain limits. Don't expect to know or to understand everything. And that is a very important idea in Judaism, especially for those who are contemplating to do teshuvah, to become stronger in their emunah. They have many questions usually. And they should not be disappointed if they don't get an answer to every question. One of the answers to some of the question is, we don't know. And that's a perfectly good answer. Because we don't know. We don't know everything. And the words of Hazal, the words of the rabbis, or as he calls it here, Kvod Melachim, one interpretation of the honor of kings, is that their matters should be discussed. Their matters can be investigated. There are many things in the Gemara, in the Halacha. These are things that you can discuss, that you can investigate, you can delve into deeply and learn about it. That's the kavod of the melachim. Actually, that is the good thing to do when it comes to the words of the rabbis, to the oral law. But there are certain areas in Judaism where it is not possible for us to ever grasp the meaning of them. And one of them is the chukim. As you know, the mitzvot of the Torah are divided into chukim, mishpatim, otot, chukim. Chukim are the decrees, not to eat pork, not to eat anything which is unclean, not a pure animal. Why not? It has nothing to do with health reasons. We just read about it in Parashat Shemini. Had it had anything to do with health reasons, the Torah would have said, "V'nishmartem me'od lenafshotechem." Be very careful, do not eat certain things. Not only does the Torah not say those words concerning non-kosher food, it does not even list the poisonous mushrooms, the poisonous herbs that exist in the world. Don't eat those things either. Why? Because the Torah, in relating to us the prohibition of food that is not kosher, food that's unclean, does not communicate to us that the reason is because they're dangerous to your health. It may be that that's one of the reasons, but that's not the primary reason. The reason is, Kikach Hashem Tziva. That is what Hashem says. That is what He commanded. It's a decree, it's a chok. Ve'en lecha reshut leharher achrehen. You have no right even to try to figure out. Why not? Why can't I figure out? But let me try. because if you try, you may be taking away a very important link. The link between the commandment and the giver of the commandment. You know why it's not good? Because it's unhealthy. Sooner or later you'll think that. Those who you teach to will think that. And what about Hashem? It will be all forgotten. He's the one that commanded, He's the one that gave it. So don't try to make up your own ideas of what it could be. It is definitely possible that there's more than one reason for a mitzvah. But because it's a chok, it's not a logical mitzvah, Hashem tzivah. Hashem said so. Yes?
Do we have a sort of rabbi that in the future these things will be revealed to us? Do we have an understanding?
Well,
the Mashiach will give us the insight?
The prophet does say that when Mashiach will come, ha'emet, the truth will come out, and the da'at, the knowledge will increase, million times more than what we know today. And obviously many aspects of the Torah that are hidden now will probably be revealed to us. Sure. Because at that point we will also be on a higher spiritual level, so we will also be able to understand and know more. So there are many areas in Judaism that it's not possible for us to fully understand, and even if one were to live for 1,000 years, as it is described elsewhere, it wouldn't do him any good in trying to figure some of these things out. It's not documented, and with the human mind it's not possible to figure it all out. And that leads to the next pasuk, which is somewhat a comparison to what he just said. Shamayim larum va'aretz la'omek v'lev melachim en cheker. The heaven for height, the earth for depth, and the honor of kings are unsearchable. You can't measure the height of the heavens or the depth, even though we can measure the depth of the earth today, because we know the diameter, we've seen the globe from space, we have an idea, but nevertheless it's a description of how we don't know what's underneath. Man has not dug too far down, only a couple miles down the crust of the earth. So these are things, just like the Shamayim and the Aretz, are things that we see. Nevertheless, we don't know fully what's out there. And the same thing with the Lev Melachim. Lev Melachim, the hearts of kings, meaning the hearts of kings, they are exposed to so much going on in the kingdom, so much going on in their life, in detail. Just like it is not possible to fully describe what goes on, as one saying goes, even if you were to use all the pens in the world and all the ink, all the oceans of the water, if all the waters in the ocean were ink, it would not be possible to describe everything that is going on in detail. In the same way, it is not possible to fully comprehend everything that's going on in the world. We're so limited, not only in time, but in our abilities to figure out what's going on, the reasons for everything. Yes?
About you explained before about the chok,
yeah.
that we shouldn't even bother trying to. Well, why did Shlomo HaMelech try to figure out about para aduma? And he said, it's beyond me. So obviously he was searching, he was trying to come up with a rational understanding of that chok. So you said don't.
No, it is permissible. It is permissible to be doresh. There's 4 levels. There's 4 levels in the understanding of the Torah, and there's also Shivim Panim La Torah, the 70 faces of interpreting. And the 4 levels or 4 layers of Torah include the simple, the Peshat, the Derash, right, the Remez, and the Sod. And what we're talking about here is all the Sodot behind it, which is really the essence of the mitzvah. That is beyond us. But the drashot in the Pashut Peshat, that of course, a lot of it is actually mentioned by the commentaries, what para aduma, the red heifer, represents. But it's so complex. Part of the complexity is that it makes you clean, but it makes you unclean too. Right? But we know why it's necessary, we know what's involved, what it defeats, the significance of it. So we have an idea of the significance of para aduma. Right? We have also an idea of the non-kosher foods. The Torah says so clearly. If you ingest these foods, v'nitmetem bam, and the word v'nitmetem, which means unclean, is missing an aleph, and the rabbis tell us v'nitmetem v'nitamtem, that your hearts will become clogged or blocked spiritually. So they will be an obstacle in your way to perform Torah mitzvot. which is why Parshat Kedoshim follows not too long after. Kedoshim to you. I want you to be holy, I'm holy, I want you to perform the mitzvot. And guess what? If you eat zebra meat, you won't be able to perform the mitzvot. If you eat shrimps, oysters, clams, and especially octopus, that's just my contribution, all of these things with the tentacles, you're going to become like them because you are what you eat. That's what they say. Yeah, we have a tradition that they definitely give us, the foods we eat contribute to our personality in some ways. So, Peshat, Derash, we have. But the essence of the mitzvah, why is Hashem so against this? And it's not, had Hashem really thought that it's not healthy, he would have made it asur for all the goyim too. The goyim eat a lot of it and they're very, very strong and healthy. So we know it's not that. It's more than that. It has to do with Tumah and Tahara, and the whole area of Tumah and Tahara is really something that we don't fully understand how it works. We don't see it. But we know it exists, the Torah says so, and it's enough that the Torah says so. Hashem created the world, he knows what's in his world. And what will give us a hard time to perform the mitzvot? He's going to tell us to stay away from those things that give us a hard time. And the food is something that affects our nefesh. All right, let's go on. Next pasuk. Hago sigim mikasef vayetze latzoref keli. Remove dross from silver. You know what dross is? D-R-O-S-S. I've never used that word. It's a hard word in English. Dross is the impurities. Those who are silversmiths, goldsmiths, smiths, in their preparation of the metals, in their forming a vessel, a keli, they refine, they remove the dross, I guess others would call it the impurities that exist. In Hebrew, we call it sigim. Hagoy sigim mikasef vayetze latzoref keli. So if you remove the dross from silver and a vessel emerges for the refiner, a beautiful vessel emerges. If he wants a beautiful vessel to emerge, he has to make sure that he removes all the impurities. This has several meanings. One is obviously the human being himself is full of imperfections. We are born with certain imperfections. It is part of our jobs to perfect ourselves. And the mitzvot, or actually the Torah, is a map or a guideline of how to achieve that, how to live our lives, how to accomplish what we have to accomplish, and how to refine our character. Believe it or not, a great deal of a Jew's life, and even of a non-Jew's life, needs to be devoted to perfecting his character, and that is one of the most difficult parts for him to do. If his mazal is good, then his livelihood will be easy. He won't have to work too hard. If he has good kids, a good spouse, then he's blessed at home. Life is easy. As they say in this country, success is smiling, something like that. It's smiling on him. Yeah, well, Hashem is smiling on him. He blessed him. But character, that's a whole different story. That's very difficult. A person can learn all these books by heart if he has a good memory. And that's a gift. Did not require too much effort on his part. He still has to make ishtadlut, as we call it in Hebrew, effort. But if he succeeds or not depends on how good of a memory, how good his retention is. Character refinement, that's a whole different story. That's a real milchama. That's a real battle, and that's a continuous battle, and it never ends. You can never change yourself completely, because you were born with certain traits, but you can discipline yourself. You can rein down the animal within you. And that not everybody is busy or thinking about doing it. They're thinking about making money, they're thinking about taking a vacation, remodeling their homes. That's what's occupying most people's time. But in reality, this should be a real big part of an individual's life, to work on himself. And everybody knows himself. Once you reach a certain age, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. And when we're talking about strength, by the way, we also talk about maximizing your potential. Sometimes that potential is dormant, and it's chaval, it's a shame. If it's not used, if it's not put to use, it's a shame. You can accomplish so much if you only applied yourself. But we're not going to talk about the potential right now. We're going to talk about a little bit about the weaknesses or the impurities, which is a big problem. Because of these impurities, people fail in areas of shlom bayit, of relationships, husband and wife, ben adam lechavero, between man and his fellow Jew. People fail in this area, and we know that the Torah consists of two parts: the mitzvot between us and Hashem, and the mitzvot between us and our friends. How could a person fulfill ve'aftare v'chakamocha, to love your friend like yourself, to treat him respectfully, to visit him when he's sick, to go comfort him if somebody passed away in his family? All of this is chesed, to do chesed, to be kind to others. It's not easy. It comes easy to some people because they're very kind in their nature. But what about those people who are reserved, antisocial, don't want to go out too much, don't want to be seen? They have the challenge in that area of going and spending time with people, inviting them over. Some people don't like having guests in their home. It's hard for them. That's their challenge. We're not only talking about midot here, we're talking about the bigger picture of performing certain mitzvot that are difficult because of the inner nature. And why is it difficult? Because of all these impurities. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it towards the end, because it has a little bit to do with astrology, of why is it that certain people are inclined to do certain things, and what is it that prompts them, and why is it that sometimes people hold back from doing something. But that's the birur here. The birur in society, in a country, is also very significant. Because the next pasuk says, Hago rasha lifnei melech v'ikon batzedek kis'o. Remove the wicked man before the king, and his throne will be established with righteousness. A lot of people complain that Kadosh Baruch Hu is not righteous, Chas v'shalom. There's no tzedek, there's no justice. And now he tells us why. Hago rasha lifnei melech. Remove the reshaim from amongst you, and then everything will be okay. When society does not remove, does not refine, does not filter out the evil from amongst them, Hashem has to do it. And when Hashem comes out and does it, a lot of people get hurt in the process, in the midst of all of this. When He's removing the Reshaim, Ki oy l'rasha ve'oy l'shcheno. Woe to the evil man, woe to his neighbor, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Hashem wants to remove the Reshaim. The typical example of Hashem getting involved is what the rabbis called a pura'anut sheba la'olam, a major disaster or calamity that comes to the world. For what purpose? Rak lechalot et mamzerim. Only to do away with the bastards. Which bastards? Which mamzerim? The ones we're not aware of. Because the ones that we know not to marry with them. They're untouchables. In some ways, they are touchable. They can get married to certain people, but they cannot really be a real part of the Jewish society. But we are aware of them. There's no danger. It's the ones we're not aware of. What's going to happen? Chaz v'shalom mamzerim mitrabim. There will going to be an increase in mamzerim. You know what that's going to do to the Jewish people? Hashem says, don't worry. The ones you're not aware of, I will destroy. I will remove. They will live this world before their time, at an early age, in some misfortune, in some calamity that will strike the world, an earthquake or the like. So that's an example of where Hashem intercedes, where human beings cannot. But then there are situations where human beings can, and they have an obligation to do justice and to remove that which is evil in their community, in their city. And if they don't do it, the whole city suffers. Hashem has to do it. That's the meaning of Hago Rasha Lifnei Melech, before the king. Remove the Rasha. Because he's the one, the Rasha is the one that's interfering with Ikon Batzedek Kis'o, that there should be righteousness, that there should be justice from above. Commentators also say that the more sigim, the more impurities there are in a vessel, the worse the vessel is. It doesn't have its real shape and form. It's not the kavod, therefore, for the king that so much impurities be around amongst his people, especially amongst Am Yisrael. It is not kavod for him, and therefore he has to remove them. And if we don't remove them, he removes them. Next pasuk, Al tithadar lifnei melech ubimkom gdolim al ta'amod. This happens quite a bit. Do not glorify yourself before a king, and do not stand in the place of great men. A lot of people that push themselves to high positions, they're not invited, right? They try to get to the top in an indirect way. He says, don't try to push yourself too hard to be before the kings, to be in high places. Maybe it's not for you. Why not? First of all, Listen to the next pasuk, what can happen if you did. כי טוב אמור לך עלה הנה מהשפילך לפני נדיב אשר ראו עיניך. For it's better that he say to you, come up here, than to humble you before a prince that your eyes have seen. In other words, it's better for a person to be called up, to be promoted by the king directly, by those who are on top, than having had yourself go up on your own and then being let down, being pushed down. This leads to a tremendous amount of embarrassment. To better understand this idea of what it means to wait things out, let the mazal do its trick. Let the mazal do what it's intended to do. Don't push your mazal too hard. To understand this idea better, think of an individual who has a lot of money, and every day for dinner, or for breakfast, whatever, for his meals, he has a very simple meal. He doesn't go to the most expensive stores to dress up. He doesn't drive the most expensive car. He lives in a very humble home, and he has millions of dollars. Imagine him, and imagine somebody else who has the exact same amount of money, but just the opposite. Very high standards of, 3 maids, fine furniture, 3 cars, chauffeur, right? Exact opposite. What will happen if these 2 individuals lose all their money? Will one feel it more than the other? Of course. The one who got used to such a high standard of living, it will be much more painful for him, the transition to poverty, than the one who was always living modestly. His fall is not as painful. And that the Midrash says, that right before Mashiach comes, Shamanta Avita Kasita, Ele Shlosha Darosh Lifnei Mashiach, we will be living in 3 generations, beginning with probably 1938, 39, maybe a little earlier or so. 3 generations where the standard of living will rise. Much more than any other period in the history of mankind. People will be very comfortable. Never have people been so comfortable as they are today, relatively. You still have people in Sudan who are not very comfortable. What I'm talking about in the Western countries. And these people, because they're comfortable, what's going to happen, Chas v'Shalom, if there is something similar to 1929, was it? When the depression took place? You're already seeing right now at the gas pump, $3.50 for 91 octane. Yeah? And what happens if that goes to $10? And it could, because Persia is crazy. I didn't say Persians. I was careful to say Persia. Right? Iran, right? They might do something crazy. And they will do. Not might, they will do a lot of crazy things. And that's going to cause tremendous havoc. And that's going to cause prices of fuel to go up. There may be a lot of terrorism. There may be other problems. And then people, of course, may not feel as secure. No matter how much money they had, it may be worthless. And who will feel it more? Those who were used to all the comforts. And they will not have those comforts. When those who live a modest life will have it easier. It still will be painful, but it will be easier. So that's part of the idea of what he's trying to say here. Don't push yourself there in case you fall. Leave it to them to elevate you. Leave it to your mazal to bring you up automatically at its time. Don't push yourself to get there. If maybe you don't belong there, and if you did, you may fall, and it becomes very painful then, and embarrassing. Yeah.
In order to get there, you have to put effort. So,
That's right. In order to get anywhere, you have to put some effort.
When this happened, so it's like,
That what?
how did you resolve it over?
Well, you make reasonable efforts to get where you want to get, as long as where you want to get is a reasonable place. Don't push it too hard, and don't try to get all the way to the top. You can aspire for that, but don't push yourself. Rabbi said it in different words. Lo litchok tasha'ah. Don't push the hour. Don't push your mazal too much. If you see that things are not so easy, if it's meant for you, it's going to happen anyway. Yeah, but don't push it. Why is this being said? Because there are people who push themselves, and in the end they fall, and it's very embarrassing. Next pasuk. Very important pasuk. Do not go out quickly to quarrel, lest you will know what you will do at its end when your friend puts you to shame. The words are not so clear, but basically what it says is, before you go out to quarrel with somebody, before you go to argue, before you get involved in an argument, find out what it's all about. Maybe it's not worth arguing about it. Maybe there's no solution to it, so why argue? So be careful. Check it out. Because at some point in time, after you've begun arguing, you may not know what to do and how to get out of it. To what is this compared to? To a crack, to an opening in a dam. Once the water goes out, there's no turning back, there's no escaping. Once you're involved in an argument, once it's wide open, it's going to be very difficult to escape the shame, the trouble that this may lead you into. So before you get involved in a quarrel is not something to be taken lightly. A big argument, a machloket, chaz v'shalom, check it out. It's not something to be involved in so easily. You have to know, ma ta'aseh b'harita, what are you going to do at the end once you're involved? Do you have a solution for it? So become familiar with what's, and these things happen in life all the time, whether it's with your in-laws, whether with your own spouse, your kids, your neighbors. There's arguments, and you have to be very careful. Should you get involved? If you're going to get involved, you have a solution for it. Otherwise, it can become very complicated. But if you do get involved in an argument, then that leads us to the next pasuk. Before we go into the next pasuk, the last words of this pasuk said, "Be'achli motcha ra'echa." You may come out embarrassed from this. You may be put to shame. Had you not gotten involved, you might have saved yourself a tremendous amount of shame and scandal. So therefore, look into it before you do it. But if you do get involved, rivcha riv et re'echa besod acher al tigal. Be careful to just have your quarrel with your friend, but do not divulge another secret. There's two ideas in this pasuk, two very important ideas. Have your quarrel with your friend. Husband and wife have a disagreement. The kids don't have to hear about it. It's not good, it's not healthy. Have it just with your spouse. It's okay. You may disagree. You may have some argument. It shouldn't last too long, hopefully you'll come to some resolution. Right? But don't do it in front of other people, especially if you're going to raise your voice. It's going to be a problem. So that's what he means. Rivcha rivet re'echa. If you have an argument, if you're getting involved, do it quietly. Don't do it in a public place. And that applies not just to husband and wife, it applies to anybody. Don't let other people hear about it. It's better to keep it quiet. Stay away if possible from the courts. Stay away if possible from a bed din. Try to resolve it with your re'echa, with your friend. And if you do get involved in the argument, and it's a very heated argument, a very heated exchange, sod acher al tigal. Be careful not to reveal the secrets. I'll tell you something about your father now that you're not going to like. Be careful with that. If that's a secret, if it's not meant for anybody to know, a person may easily get very, very upset and introduce things that have nothing to do with the argument whatsoever, and it's lashon hara, and it's other terrible things. Don't be careful not to introduce anything else. Again, why is he saying this? There's a lot of pieces of information here that we did not learn or cover in the first chapters, but they're so true, they're so relevant, they're so real. People make this mistake of talking about other things because they want to feel stronger, they're confident, they want to make a point. Take care of your argument, get to the point, resolve it, and don't introduce any secrets, things that should not be made public. Why? Next pasuk, pen yachazetcha shomea v'dibatcha lo tashuv. He translates here, lest one who hears embarrass you, and your slander cannot be taken back. Somebody hears about it, he will embarrass you for having said something like that. And the diba, the lashon hara, the slander that came out cannot be taken back, cannot be repaired. What was said is said, the damage is done. So therefore you want to be careful in all these arguments. What are you going to say? How are you going to approach it? The lashon hara that comes out of it can be very difficult to repair, if at all. And the shame that one may have as a result of exposing certain things is also tremendous damage to himself, to his reputation. These are things that are almost irreparable. So think twice before you say something, before you do something like that. Rabbis tell us, I think it's mentioned in the Sefer Hasidim, "Hamegaleh chet'o shel chavero berabim, en avono mitkaper." Whoever reveals the sin of his friend in public, his sin for doing that will never be atoned for. Because the damage that he has done by publicizing something like that, how are you going to take it back? People already know. How are you going to fix it? So before you make something public, before you talk about something that is very sensitive, not everybody thinks about it. In the heat of the argument, they get all upset, they say all sorts of things, they curse, they use bad language, and a tremendous amount of lashon hara and machloket sin'ah comes out of this. And since this is the time that, unfortunately, the sinat chinam was very, very strong during the days of the students of Rabbi Akiva, the Sfirat HaOmed, it's obviously a good idea to talk about it. That is one of the reasons why we learn Pirkei Avot, to work on ourselves, to accept everybody, to see the good in everybody, to respect each other. Something which people have a hard time with, but nevertheless, this is what needs to be done. If you want to live well with everybody, get along with everybody, and eliminate sinat chinam, this is also what will bring the Mashiach. The baseless hatred is a tremendous problem that has existed too long, everywhere, throughout history. And it stems, of course, from a lack of understanding that every human being is special in some way. Just as simple as that. I mean, it's a lot more complex than what I just said, but that's one of the ideas. Everyone is created b'tzelem Elokim. Every human being, not just every Jew. There's something good and special about them. They're needed in this world. They have a mission. Don't look down at them. But it takes work. תפוחי זהב ומשכיות כסף, דבר דבור על אופניו, like golden apples on silver-plated vessels, is a word spoken with proper basis. Here he says how important and beautiful a good word can be. A good word, said in the proper time, said properly, can make a big difference. It's like תפוחי זהב ומשכיות כסף. משכיות כסף means kelim that are silver-plated, and they are adorned with golden apples, with golden flowers. What do you have when you have gold over silver? You have a contrast. The yellow of the gold and the silver of the right color of the silver. It's a contrast. It's beautiful. It stands out. In the same way, good words said in the proper time, they have the power of they are moshchim. They attract, they influence, they make a difference to people. The reason he's saying this is because we just talked about lashon hara, diba, slander, how that is so damaging. Whereas if it's done properly, in the right time, a kind word, a good word, said in the proper way, can make tremendous difference to those who are listening to it. Just like tapuchei zahav v'maskiyot kasef, just like golden flowers or apples in a silver keli, how they enhance the beauty of the keli, the contrast between the two colors. Davar dabur al ofnav, the words are said properly in the right time. In other words, words are powerful, we know that, and words communicated in a certain way at a certain time can make a big difference to people. We know how people's moods change just by listening to certain words, listening to music. It's timing also. It's not just the words, he says both. Davar dabur al ofnav, something said in the proper way at its proper time. Nezem zahav v'chali chatem mochiach chacham al ozen shomat, like golden earring and jewelry of finest gold is a wise man giving reproof to an ear that listens. It's a beautiful zivug, he says. When you have the combination of a chacham who is reproving, who is rebuking, who's giving musar, and you have an ozen shomat, a listening ear. It's like nezem zahav v'chali chatem. These are pieces of jewelry. In other words, they go well together. They're beautiful. It's a great combination for somebody to be speaking, but does he have somebody that will listen to him? All the good words will not make a difference if you don't have a listening ear. So if you have the combination of somebody who knows how to speak, somebody who knows how to give musar, and an individual who's willing to listen, that's the best zivug possible. Why so? Because the commentators explain that the kiyum ha-Torah, the fulfillment of Torah, is very much dependent on mochichim, those who rebuke, and those who are willing to hear rebuke. If there's a lack of will to listen to the musar, to the rebuke, to criticism, then it's a very grave problem. In other words, it's a very big weakness on the part of the individual, because he will not be able to progress if he's not willing to hear how he can improve himself. So Kiyum HaTorah, to be able to properly fulfill the Torah, to be able to properly advance and refine oneself, as we've spoken about before, one has to be willing to listen to Musar. So if you have that combination of an individual who's able to give the Musar and one who's willing to listen, that is a great zivug. That goes very well together. Ketzinat shelek biyom katzir tzir ne'eman l'shulcha v'nefesh adonav yashiv. Like the cold of snow on the day of harvest is an emissary faithful to his sender who refreshes his master's soul. Very poetic, very cryptic, but a very, very nice way of putting it together. Basically, this is what he's saying. A person works very hard, b'yom katzir, on the day of harvest, and he sweats. It may be hot. If you give him cold water, cold shower, ketzinat sheleg, it's nefesh adonav yashiv. It refreshes him. Just like a little bit of cool air, cool water refreshes somebody who has worked hard and is hot, the same is true with the tzir ne'eman l'shulchav. Tzir ne'eman is a faithful emissary to his sender. Somebody that does his job, it's refreshing to the one who did the job and to the one who sent him. It's a great feeling of satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Who are we talking about here? Well, one individual who we're talking about is the human being who was sent down into this world, and every one of us has a mission. Everyone has a customized mission. And if he does his job, upstairs they're proud of him. It's like tzinat shelek b'yom katzir. It's refreshing. This man has done his job. And when that nefesh reaches olam haba, it feels great about itself. I was able to do all that in such a short time. Can you imagine the opposite if somebody sees that he wasted his time, didn't do anything, did not contribute to society? A lot of people, by the way, contribute in very meaningful ways to society, and they're not even Jewish. Do you know there are a lot of people out there in Africa, in the swamps, curing the Africans from malaria, from all sorts of diseases? They're actually volunteer. They're contributing in a meaningful way to society, to humanity. Everyone in some way. As long as you don't think just of yourself, you have something to contribute. And when you do so, it's v'nefesh adonav yashiv. It's refreshing to the sender, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's happy, and it's refreshing to the neshama himself when he's able to look back and says, "Oh wow, I did accomplish all of that." So it's a very satisfying feeling. It's very fulfilling for somebody to accomplish something that is meaningful, obviously. And he should know, as soon as you're old enough, you should know that you have something that nobody else has. And you were given the tools to do whatever that something is. And go out and do it. Don't stay home. Don't be lazy. Because if you stay home and you're lazy, you're probably not going to do anything. Nesi'im v'ruach v'geshem ayin ish mithalel b'matat shaker. Clouds and wind but no rain, so is a man who boasts with a false gift. Oh, this is a terrible problem that exists, unfortunately. But before we get to this problem, we're talking about messengers. You know who else is a messenger besides a human being? Rabbis tell us, cholaim ne'emanim. When a Kadosh Baruch Hu sends disease down, the diseases are agents too. They're emissaries. And they are reliable. These messengers are very reliable. Reliable for what? They know exactly when to leave. They know when to come, and they know when to leave. When a person is inflicted with something, min hashamayim, they've already decided for how many hours, how many days, how many months he's going to have whatever it is. As Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Gemara tells us, had toothaches. That's very painful for 13 years. And after 13 years, they decided, because of some incident, that the time has come for him to recover. Very painful, right? You know all about it. So they are reliable because they come and go whenever they're told to. But now we've come to a very, very significant pasuk. I think it's very significant because there are unfortunately too many people that fit into this category. Nesi'im v'ruach v'geshem ayin ish mithalel b'matat shaker. The translation is clouds and wind, but no rain. When you see clouds and you see wind and you are a farmer, you're happy. You want the rain to come down. What happens when you see the clouds and you see the wind and no rain? You're very disappointed. So is a man who boasts with a false gift. You know that there are a lot of people out there that they promise to help you, and in the end they don't. They promise that they will help you. They promise that they will give you tzedakah. They promise that they will do something for you, and at the end they turn you down. That's very disappointing. That's very painful. A lot of people have suffered a great deal in the hands of such individuals who make a promise and they are capable of delivering, and in the end they let you down. Very painful. It's like clouds and wind but no rain. And what does this come from? Either we're talking about outright liars, they want to impress you, or we're talking about an individual who initially had the ratzon, had the goodwill to help, and later changed his mind. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit now, astrologically, why that happens. So I saw this in the name of the Gaon of Vilna, but I would say a little bit different than this. But this is what he said. This is what is mentioned in the name of the Gaon of Vilna. Whenever somebody has the desire to be generous for a moment, that's because the Yesod Haruach Itgabrabo, the element of air, has all of a sudden increased or intensified in him. We're all made up of 4 elements: air, fire, water, and earth. And some people have one more than the other, an emphasis on one element. And as a result of the various elements, people have different ideas, different desires, different interests, different feelings, different ways of communicating, and so forth. And generosity is not kindness, so don't confuse the two. You know what kindness is? It's not generosity. What is generosity? Anybody know what's the difference between generosity and kindness? It's a hard one, huh? They sound the same, but they're not. A lot of people can be kind. Almost all the elements can be kind. A generous person is generous, is grand. He does more. That's what generosity means. Not just kind. You can be kind with giving somebody $1. You're kind. You're caring. And you're giving too. But you're definitely not generous. You see the difference? Nedivut in English is generosity. Generosity in Hebrew is nedivut. And they say in the name of the Gaon of Vilna that if a person is generous, it's because the ruach in him has intensified. Momentarily, that yesod, that element has become strong. I'm not so sure 100%, but if they say so in the name of the Gaon of Vilna, then it could be right. I think it's also a combination of other things. But nevertheless, let's assume that it's yesod ruach, which makes some sense, because ruach, those people who have a lot of air in their element, they have sometimes these lofty ideas of doing a lot, of doing something in a grand or revolutionary way, depending if it's Aquarius, Libra, or Gemini. They have a different way of expressing it, but it's possible that there's that generosity in them that comes out and does more, and they think of others more than of themselves. Possible. But that's what it means when a person has all of a sudden this moment of being a nadiv, generous. The ruach, the yesod ruach has developed or intensified in him. Then what has happened to him? Gaon of Vilna says, or they say it in his name, when he regrets it, it's the element of earth that has intensified in him. Earth. You know why earth? Earth is very, very practical, very pragmatic, down to earth. Could be very stubborn, could resist change. And it's this element that causes a person sometimes to regret. What does it mean to regret? To feel bad, to be serious, to tone something down. All of a sudden, 1 minute before, all this excitement. No more excitement for now. Everything is quiet. That's the earth. The earth restricts. The earth disciplines. No, it's too much to give $10,000 for this cause. See what I mean? $1,000 is enough. It's interesting because it's true that the elements definitely have a lot to do with how we feel and why we do certain things. And you know what? People can do and feel different things at different times of the day, not on different days. One way in the morning and one way in the evening. And they're not moody. We're not talking about moody people here. We're talking about people who are logical, people who are strong, but they felt one way in the morning and they feel another way in the afternoon, another way in the evening. And of course, one who does not learn Torah, does not learn Musar, will not see his mistakes. According to the Kabbalah, your first feeling about somebody, about something, is very, very reliable. Whether you're dating, whether you're thinking of doing a mitzvah, a good deed, whether you have a certain suspicion about something, your first inkling, your first inclination, it can be very, very real. Why? Because you haven't had time to analyze and to judge and deliberate, which you need to do in certain areas. You have to deliberate and you have to think about certain things, but not about others. When it comes to doing a good deed, go by your first inkling. If it's a good deed, go by it. If your first inkling about an individual was, you know what, I don't know, it doesn't look like it's going to be a smooth ride or a smooth relationship or whatever it is, if it's a shidduch, a partnership, your first inclination is pretty accurate. Then you start analyzing and this and this and this, and you may cover up. You know how many people knew that they were not for each other when they first met? But he or she thought, well, I'm going to let that go. She's going to change. When she gets married to me, of course, she's going to be different. No, she's not. Or not, I'm sorry, I have to be fair. No, he's not going to be any different. He's the same temperamental individual before the wedding. He will be the same temperamental man after the wedding, unless, of course, he works on himself. So if you see certain things before the wedding, be very careful with them, because usually they don't change, unless the person is very strong. Anyway, that's why people feel differently at different times, because obviously their personalities, their character is such a character or such a personality that at certain moments they feel one way, and if they don't overcome it with their mind and with their logic, with the proper hashkafa, then they're simply like waves of the ocean, going with the flow and not going with what really is the truth, the proper hashkafa. Yes?
What did the Gaon of Vilna say about fire and water people, Rabbi, in terms of generosity?
I already gave a lecture about that some other time.
You just talked about the air and the earth.
Yeah. I'm going to get, oh, you mean the fire, the water?
Fire.
Oh, yeah, I'll mention that in the next point that I'm going to say. The last pasuk that we're going to cover today is pasuk tetvav, be'orech hapayim yefuteh, katzin v'lashon rakat yishbor garem. The ruler is won over with slowness to anger, and a gentle tongue will break a bone. Also, a very important pasuk, a very famous pasuk, especially the second half, that a gentle tongue will break a bone. What is he talking about over here? The simple meaning, the commentaries say, is that when there is erech hapayim, when a Kadosh Baruch Hu is slow to anger, when he's not going after you, that is the time to do teshuvah. That is the time to use tahanunim, lashon rakah, prayer, gentle voice, to turn to Hashem, because that is the time where you still may succeed to be mevatel de gezerah, to turn over the decree. So lashon rakah, the gentle voice, could be talking about tefillah and tahanunim, prayer, and asking Hashem for forgiveness. That's one meaning. The other idea here is that it pays to be sometimes calm and not to react when somebody gets very angry. In other words, you can win over the ruler with slowness of anger. The ruler is upset at you. Don't get angry. Don't answer back. Don't yell back. Be slow. Go with the flow. He's going to calm down. The weather is going to change. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the fire people who are quick to anger. Just ride it out. Don't deal with it. You can win over the ruler. You can win over these people who have this problem with kas and anger, with being orech hapayim yourself, with just being calm, with being patient. And with a soft, gentle voice, which is the water, with warmth and affection and with a hug sometimes too, then of course you can accomplish a lot too. Tishbor garem means you can break a bone. Somebody who's very, very hard, very tough. But if you use lashon rakah, if you use a gentle, soft voice, you can accomplish a lot more than fighting outright with them. Very important, very good advice on how to deal with people, whether these individuals are rulers, somebody who's your boss perhaps, or whether it's your spouse, whether it's a child. Patience is a virtue, right? Lashon rakah is definitely something very, very powerful. It's a lashon rakah, it's a gentle voice, but it goes a long way, and it accomplishes a lot. And if we're dealing with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, these two are very important. To take advantage during the time that Kadosh Baruch Hu has not yet done anything, Khalila, to punish us, and to beg for teshuvah, to turn back to Him, and to use prayer and supplication, which is lashon rakah, lishbor garem, which is to break the bone. What bone? To annul the decrees, chas v'shalom, if they're out there, that they shouldn't come down. Once they've come down, it's very difficult to turn over, to cancel, to undo. But before the gezerah comes down, it is still possible to change. And the other meaning is in dealing with individuals who are temperamental. You can't win. If you try to win, you lose. Have you heard that? You never win in a war, you always lose. Try to avoid it, and it's very easy. Be patient and be gentle. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week.